My name is Fiorella Allio. I'm a permanent CNRS researcher based in Marseille at the Institute for Research on Asia, and I conduct research on Taiwan's Hokkien people whose ancestors arrived from Southeast China 300 years ago. My presentation is based on a series of phenomena observed in contemporary Taiwan and analyzed from an anthropological viewpoint. The title of this presentation is Symbolic Fights and Real Confronts, the standpoint of martial troops in Taiwan's religious processions. On Taiwan Island, collective rituals, often taking the form of territorial processions, still reserve an important, if not primordial, place for the martial register and especially for battalions of martial arts. Beyond their spectacular external aspects that mobilize all senses and attention, conveniently laid like a varnish to conceal other disturbing dimensions, these collective rituals aim principally at expelling harmful forces endangering the larger community and its inhabitants. Their participants were locals marched through a territory that has to be defended. They stand symbolically on a battlefield, actualizing a magic war that may cause victims in the present or immediate future. These phenomena lend themselves particularly well to the reflection carried out within the platform of this Conference on Martial Arts Studies, dedicated in its sixth edition to martial arts, religion, and spirituality. In the following lines, I'm not concerned with mythology nor spirituality, but rather with ritual action as a religious process and energizing social drama with internally expressive meanings to be decoded and taking shape specifically in the context of Taiwanese folk religion, which has Hokkien origins in the southeastern part of China and similarities with the practices spread by other Hokkien immigrants in different parts of Southeast Asia. Starting from the observation that seemingly figurative, even theatrical combats reach in fact symbolic and social dimensions in local representations that go far beyond what an outsider sees or may say about it. This presentation tries to shed light on this essential aspect of Sino-Taiwanese popular religion, that is martiality, focusing here on processional martial troops that, as a matter of fact, liken in their main function the performance of spirit mediums, danki, present as well in the ritual, and that of territorial processions as a whole. This presentation tries to bridge two commonly separate spheres, that of religious rituals related to martial arts, still in practice in the Chinese world, and that of Chinese martial arts as known in their popularized form in the West, but also in the domain of sport, competition, and education, where magic is unknown and rejected if known. Processional martial troops made up of men from participating local communities are often related to the old militias which ensured the security of the villages at a time when the imperial state did not intervene at a lower level of the territory in this newly conquered island of Taiwan, and at a time when the competitions were fierce among Chinese pioneers who came to develop alleged new land frequently withdrawn from Austronesian indigenous peoples, often with violence. Nowadays, these troops have only a religious and performative role, but this one is of first importance in the processions. Except from being one of the emblems of their village during the parades, they also constitute a special military force of the local tutelary deities who live in beautiful dwellings, temples, villages, temples. And along with them, with the deities, the troops assume an exorcist ritual function directed against malevolent supernatural entities which harm the community and its inhabitants. Those engaged between the communities who practice an exchange of gifts and counter gifts within and during this ritualized space and time, and those between humans and the supernatural world believed to be populated not only by deities but also by the souls of the dead condemned to wander after their violent death and therefore not qualified to benefit from the status of compliant ancestors and regular offerings. People imagine them as lacking in everything that satisfies basic needs and being aggressive, vengeful, above all, harmful. This category is also summoned to take part in the ritual, quite paradoxically, one might say, because they cause dread and are avoided as much as possible. Their name is not even pronounced for fear of attracting them. The cortege of an intercommunal procession draws together the different formations representing all the participating cult communities, villages, hamlets of the territory. They march one after the other in a pre-established order. The head of the procession is considered more dangerous than the other segments since it opens the way. That is to say, it may first come into contact with malevolent spirits. A village formation is called in the vernacular language ritual battalion, accentuating the reference to the military. It is invariably composed of a palanquin at the rear, place of honor, and a performing troupe in the front designated with the generic term dintao, head of a battalion, subdivided either as martial troops or civil troops, depending on their genres and the content of their performance. We shall focus on martial troops, which bear the evocative names of Songjiang troops, Golden Lion troops, the White Crane troop, the Five Tigers, Pacify the West troop. The participation in the procession requires a minute preparation through a long apprenticeship, under the direction of one or more masters of martial activities and under the spiritual supervision of a tutelary god. The apprenticeship is punctuated with rites. Settling and entering the ritual area of rehearsal and play, which marks the beginning of learning and rehearsal. Opening up the ritual area of play, taking part in the processions, putting down and leaving the ritual area of play, which marks the completion of the involvement of the troop members until the next occurrence. One easily notices that the reference to the ritual area of play, the guan, a kind of dojo, is fundamental. This is where the altar dedicated to the tutelary god of the troop is established for worship with burning incense. The environment and the steps of the apprenticeship, the vocabulary as well, clearly indicate that the whole process is a rite of passage. It is during the period of apprenticeship that collective figures and individual and duet sequences are learned down to the smallest detail, so that during the processional performance everything can be reproduced without incident and with persuasion. The martial art troops are each composed of about 50 participants, including the masters, organizers, and helpers. 36 members constitute the formation proper. They always operate in a collective way, guided by the sound of the drums, cymbals, and gong. When they walk in rank, the participants look like a battalion in exercise. At specific moments of the processional ritual, they invest plaza, most often in front of local temples, and they execute collective figures of deployment, withdrawal, encirclements, attacks. It is also in the circle formed by their blade weapons and sticks put on the ground that troops members engage in figurative combats, in solo, in duet, with bare hands, then arm ends, according to a pre-established order, fears of attacks and injuries, to the necessary involvement in hostilities and possible revenge. The collective deployment clearly shows that we are dealing with battalions rather than individual combatants, showing personal prowess. The collective aspect, therefore, also informs us that the nature and scope of ritual actions that concern the entire community, in which individual gestures are inserted, always within a circle, decline in solos or duets, face to face or overlapping. Who are the adversaries engaged in this face to face? The members of the same troupe who mimic fighting with prearranged patterns? Or the whole troupe opposed to external adversaries invisible to the uninitiated? According to the local symbolic representations, these invisible but tangible entities are the very harmful souls of the dead who died a violent death, therefore condemned to wandering. The ritual moment is the opportunity to collectively set with them the terms of a pact, enabling humans to live safely for a certain period of time and in the longer term, hoping to prosper. 3 degrees of martial actions are conceived: demonstrations of strength, hopefully dissuasive; attacks conceived as a response; annihilation of those who resist and persist without giving up harming. Taiwanese ritual contexts, where several types of oppositions are represented, allows us to understand the way in which registers of tangible and imagined actions are linked, to understand how real performances, demonstrations, and fights interpenetrate, to seize the value and the scope of the martial domain, and finally to underscore its link with religion.